mentioned earlier, like we'll be covering 10 different topics in the entire AWS course, but we actually get into the topics of AWS, that is Amazon Web Services. First, we need to know what actually made AWS come into picture. Like if you take 10 years back, or even the 5-6 years back, so AWS was not there. I mean, actually AWS was there, but we don't know. The people don't tell large scale. Nowadays, if you ask any software person or any people, they'll keep on telling that a term called cloud computing. They'll just say that cloud computing terminology. That is the most important thing. First, if we need to understand the cloud computing parameter, and then we'll go to the Amazon Web Services. So today's class will be focusing on a few topics. So topics mostly that are related to the cloud computing aspect only. So these are the services which I said just now. So all these 10 topics we are going to look into that. S3, EC2, EBS, Elastic Load Balancer, and then auto scaling, IAM, Elastic Beanstalk, VPC, Route 53, and SMS. So these topics we are going to cover. Anyways, this will have a discussion in the next class also. So for today's class, what we'll be talking is, we'll be talking about the introduction towards cloud computing. So how that cloud computing has actually emerged into picture, and what is the need for cloud computing. This is also the most important. Followed by that, we'll be talking about the AWS, what actually is AWS, why we are calling it as a cloud computing model. So, and then we'll be talking about what are the different companies which are using AWS. And then we'll be talking about why the companies are using AWS, why most of the companies are adopting AWS technology or the cloud computing technology. That we'll see. And then we'll have a brief overview about what are the different services that are offered by AWS. So these are our today's topics. So we'll be seeing with the first one, which is called as cloud computing. Now, before we actually understand the term cloud computing, let us understand with some basic example. Suppose let's say that I have a device. Okay, let's say that there are two persons that are available. The first person and second person. Let's say that person 1 is available in Hyderabad and person 2 is available in Mumbai. So let us understand this way. So person 1 is available in Hyderabad and person 2 is available in Mumbai. Now what happens is, let's consider that these two persons are working for the same company. Let's say that that company name as XYZ. This is the company which they are working. Now let us also consider that these two persons are working on same project as well. They are working on the same project also. Now, since they are working on the same project, the person 1 and person 2, since they are working on the same project, there might be a need that they have to share the data. Okay, they have to share the data. Now, whenever say the term called sharing of data, So suppose let's say that person 1 is having some important file which is related to the project, and it has to be shared to the person 2 who is in Mumbai. Now, the possible cases of sharing the data are logically two. The first case is you can share the data using pen drives or a hard disk. This is the first possible case. And the second possible case is you can share the data using email. Okay, email or also Google Drive. Let's say Google Drive also. Now let us consider the first aspect. Person 1 wants to share the data to pen drive or hard disk. Now we know the minimum capacity and maximum capacity of pen drives and hard disks. Nowadays, most of the pen drives are coming at a storage capacity of 128 GB. Okay. You can 2 TB hard disk. This is the storage capacity of pen drive and hard disk. Say that person copy the data in the pen drive. Wants to copy the entire data in pen drive. Now let us understand that this person 1 has shared or has copied all the data into the pen drive. Now, as I said earlier, person 1 is in Mumbai. Now he has to share this pen drive, or he has to give the pen drive to person 2 who is in Mumbai. Okay, actually impossible task. Now person 1, every time whenever person 2 or person 1 wants to share the data, they cannot go every time taking the pen drives or taking the hard disk from Hyderabad to Mumbai or Mumbai to Hyderabad. It's very complicated process and we don't actually need it. Suppose when we use pen drives or hard disks, when the persons are in nearby, suppose let's say that instead of telling it as Hyderabad and Mumbai, let's say the both persons are there in the same place or same city. Let's say both the people are available in Hyderabad only and they are working in the same company. Then it is possible. It's a possibility if they are in the same building of a company, then they can share the data. Now again, here also it's a problem. Now every day, let's say that person 1 is in somewhere around 10th floor and person 2 is in 12th floor. So though they are working in the same project, their domains might be different. Now person 1 or person 2, one has to go to each other and they have to collect the data. Now this might be possible for once or twice, not for every time in a day. Let's say that in a day they have to 5 times. In a day they have to move for 5 times. Now all the times they cannot go from 10th floor to 12th floor or 12th floor to 10th floor, and they cannot keep on sharing the pen drives and they cannot keep on sharing the data in the pen drives or hard disk. So this is a worst possible case, or this is an impossible case, until or unless if the people are there next to each other. So in the same 10th floor, if the two people are sitting in next to next cabins, the same side by side cabin, then it is okay. Again, it is again every time you cannot ask the person to share the data, to give the pen drive and to share the data on them. It's actually a complicated process. When you talk in terms of the software aspect, but not as a student or not as a general member. So general members, we actually use either pen drives or hard disk to share the data. Even though the person is in the same city, if they are in the different places, we'll try to give or we'll try to get the pen somehow. But in the software companies, it won't be the situation. Now the other possible case here is sharing the data using the email or Google Drive. Now let's say that the email or Google Drive option, suppose let's say that email can allow a maximum of 500 MB. Okay, you can attach a maximum of 500 MB files in the email. Let us understand this. Let us consider this way. It might be different also, but let's say that the maximum amount of data which you can share through email is 500 MB. That's the maximum data. Now let's say that you have 1 GB data. You have 1 GB data where it has to be transferred from person 1 to person 2. Now, when there is 1 GB of data, that means huge amount of data, you probably use Google Drive. So this is the other possible ways, other possible option. Now, let's say that whose Google Drive you are going to use. Whose Google Drive you are going to use. That again, you have two possible options. One is your personal Google Drive or the personal account, personal Gmail account Google Drive. That's one case. Or the company's account, company's Google, company's email ID, and then in that the storage capacity will be there. So that way you can use. Now, let's say that you are using both cases, the personal account and then the company's account. Now, your account can store, let's say that 10 GB of data. Okay, 10 GB of data. Let's say they are software-based companies. Let's say 15 GB of data can be shared through company's account. Now, let's understand that 10 GB storage capacity is completely full and 15 GB storage capacity is also completely full after, let's say, 4 months. After 4 months, their storage capacity is completely full. Now, how will they share the data? So they have to share the data, but how will they share? So what are the other possible options? The other possible option of sharing the data beyond a limited capacity. So here you are given with limited capacity. Suppose if you want to store, if you want to share the data or if you want to store the data, so at a maximum level, let's say you want to share 1 TB of data. You want to share 1 TB of data from person 1 to person 2 who are different in regions. So they are not in the same place or they are not in the same city. Let's assume that they are in a different city. Now, if you want to share 1 TB of data from a person who is staying in Mumbai to a person who is staying in Hyderabad, so you cannot use the pen drive or hard disk option, and you also cannot use the email option or Google Drive option also. So to avoid these kind of problems or to make sure the sharing of data should happen at a proper rate, there has come a technology which is called as the cloud computing. Now that's where the cloud computing has emerged into picture. So the cloud computing is nothing but whenever you want to share the data, okay, whenever you want to share the data, So the data can be shared without using any kind of proper techniques. So proper techniques, when I mean proper techniques, so to avoid this kind of things, that is to avoid the data sharing from one person to another person using pen drives or using through Google Drives, there has come a technology which is called as cloud computing. Now, when I say cloud computing, I actually don't mean the clouds which you see in the sky. Okay, when I say cloud computing, they are not actually the clouds which we are seeing in the sky. Cloud in cloud computing refers to internet. That means you can share any amount of data using internet as a medium. That's called as cloud computing. Now, if you want to define the cloud computing with a proper definition, it can be defined as the storing and accessing of data over the internet. So whenever you want to share the data or whenever you want to store the data using internet as a medium, that kind of technology is called as cloud computing. In cloud computing, technically, this is all stored in the cloud itself. That is, it is all stored in the internet itself. Now the question is, who provides this service? So what are the different companies or what are the different platforms where cloud computing is available? That we'll see in some time. But what we have to understand here is all the data that is available with us. So we can share the data that is available, or we can launch the different services. Like suppose if you want to launch a website, so you need servers for that. Or if you want to create a physical server room, you need a physical storage capacity. So now you need the infrastructure, or you need the physical infrastructure. That means you need a building, and then you need a components, and then you need the security to those components. All these things are required. Now, in order to avoid all these things, cloud computing technology has got emerged into picture. So it is basically the distribution of computing services over the internet. When I say computing services, it actually means you can create any amount of data or you can share any amount of data using the technique called cloud computing. So we have different cloud computing services like S3, EC2, and then Route 53, VPC, all these things are there. So let us not bother much about what are these computing services, but what you have to understand is computing services can be in many different forms. Suppose let's say the first form can be in the form of servers. So as I said, if you want to create a website, you need servers for that. And then you need the database system for that, okay, to store all the data. So now this servers and database, usually they will be maintained as a physical infrastructure. Okay, they will be maintained as a physical infrastructure. Now, cloud computing, what does it do? It does is they don't maintain in the physical infrastructures. So they'll maintain all this data in the internet. And that maintenance of data in the internet is called as cloud computing. That maintenance of data in the internet is called as cloud computing. So basically, it doesn't store any amount of data in the hard disk of your personal computer. Okay, that's one thing. So whenever you want to share the data, as I said earlier, you need to use pen drives or hard disks or the Google Drives or the emails. So when you share the data through emails or pen drives or any other option, what happens is it will consume some amount of data. Suppose let's say that your pen drive is having a capacity of 16 GB. Now let's say that you are keeping a file which has a capacity of 10 GB. Let's say you are keeping a file which has a capacity of 10 GB. Now the 10 GB of data which is available in the 16 GB pen drive will get consumed. So that means you are left over with only 6 GB of storage capacity. You are left over with only 6 GB of storage capacity. Now this is a problem here because you have the limited amount of storage capacity and you can only share limited amount of data. You cannot share, suppose in 16 GB pen drive, you cannot share 20 GB of data. That's impossible also. You cannot do that. But in cloud computing, you can do that. Okay. Why you can do that or in what ways you can do that? It is because you are sharing the data or you are not sharing the data or storing the data in the hard disks or pen drives. You are sharing or storing the data in the internet. So that's the reason why cloud computing has got emerged, because we don't need any physical devices to store the data, or we don't need any physical devices to share the data. We can store and we can share the data using the internet as a medium. And because of this only, cloud computing has got evolved into a very larger scale. Nowadays, the cloud computing like Microsoft Azure or the AWS, they are gaining more popular. Why they are gaining more popular? It is because of this only. Because you don't need physical infrastructure for that. You don't need to keep any physical infrastructure for that. Everything can be done in the internet. So that's simply the cloud computing technology. Okay. Now, let us understand who are the different cloud service providers. We were talking about cloud computing, and we don't need to have pen drives, and we can share a maximum amount of data or unlimited amount of data, or we can also store unlimited amount of data in the cloud computing. Now, somebody has to provide the services in the cloud. Okay, there are few companies across the globe who can provide the cloud service models. The first one is called as Google Cloud Platform, which is in simple terms, it is called as a GCP. So which is actually provided by Google or supported by Google. So this is also one of the cloud computing model. And the second one is called as a Microsoft Azure, which is offered by Microsoft company. Okay, so these are different cloud computing models. And apart from these two, you also have the cloud, which is based on IBM company. And then you have the cloud from Alibaba Cloud, which is basically limited to China, and it can be used other places also, but it was a Chinese company. And then we have the other cloud service providers as VMware, and the next one is the Salesforce. So these are the available cloud service providers in the market. So if you want to work with any of the cloud computing models, you can work with only these options. I mean, these are the best possible options. Among all these, why you are learning AWS, why you are not learning GCP, why you are not learning Microsoft Azure? It is because that Amazon Web Services has the most flexible rate of usage. Doesn't matter which stream you belong to. Suppose in order to understand Amazon Web Services, you don't actually need to be a computer science graduate, or you don't need to be a computer science engineer. So though you are from a different field, be it civil engineering, be it mechanical engineering, be it from degree backgrounds, be it from hotel management, be it from any sector. So this Amazon Web Services is very simple to understand. And again, when I say simple, it is not so simple, but it is easy to understand. Okay, anybody can learn this cloud computing technology. So it is not just with the AWS also, it can be worked with the GCP and then Microsoft Azure, Salesforce, all these things are very easy to understand. And because of the flexibility of Amazon Web Services, because of its ease of understanding and ease of getting to know the things, Amazon Web Services nowadays is getting more popular. Okay, nowadays most of the companies are using Amazon Web Services as one of the cloud computing or cloud service providers. So if you take any company, I'll show you few companies who are using cloud service, that is AWS services, in a short time. Now let us understand what are the different cloud computing models. So broadly, if you categorize, there are two different cloud computing models. The first one is called as a service model, and the second one is called as a deployment model. The first one is called as service model, and the second one is called as deployment model. Again, in the service model, you have three types. The first one is called as IaaS, which is called as infrastructure as a service. And the second one is called as PaaS, which is called as platform as a service. And the next one is called as software as a service. So sometimes software as a service can also be called as PaaS, PSaaS, packaged software as a service. So mostly we call it as software as a service one. These are the three different service-based models. I'll talk about each one of these in some time. And the next one is a deployment model. So basically in deployment model, you have three different types. One is called as public cloud, and the second one is private cloud, and the next one is hybrid cloud. So let us understand each one of these individually now. So first let us talk about the service model, and then we'll go to the deployment model. But before we actually talk about the service model and deployment model, we have two types of phenomena. The two types of phenomena is, the first one is called as a cloud-based model, and the second one is called as on-premises model. First one is called as cloud-based model, and the second one is called on-premises model. But let us understand the on-premises model first. So let us consider this one. What do you mean by on-premises or on-premise? On-premise is nothing but, suppose let's say that there is a company called IBM. Okay, so I'm talking with respect to before cloud computing has come into picture. That's the case I'm taking here. So let's say there is a company called IBM. Now in IBM, you can find some lakhs of people who are working under IBM. Let's say 10 lakhs of people are there. Now for all these 10 lakhs of people, you need, for each person, you need 10 lakh laptops. I mean, for each person, it needs one laptop or personal computer, anything. So that means 10 lakh laptops or 10 lakh PCs are required. Now, all these 10 lakh PCs should be provided with the internet. Okay, all these 10 lakh PCs should be provided with the internet. If there is no internet, then there is no point in doing a software job. So in any software job, you'll have the internet facility. So 10 lakh, 10 lakh systems, they are providing internet facility. Now let us assume our house itself is there. Okay, in our house or in our houses, hardly 4 to 5 members will be there. Okay, hardly 4 to 5 members will be there. Now in a house which consists of 4 to 5 members, let us say that we have brought the Geo Wi-Fi. Okay, let us say we have brought the Geo Wi-Fi. Now let's say that all the 5 persons are using the Wi-Fi every second in a day. Okay, let's say that 15 hours they are using the Wi-Fi continuously, all the 5 persons. Now at the end of one particular time, the entire storage capacity, suppose let's say that per day it is given with only 10 GB of data. Now 10 GB of data, if 4 or 5 persons are using for 15 hours, it will be consumed before 15 hours itself. Okay, hardly nowadays 10 GB of data, we can finish it in 1 or 2 hours only, hardly 3 hours, not more than that also. So for a house which consists of 4 to 5 members requires 10 GB of data, understand that how much amount of internet is required for a company who is having some thousands of employees in a region. So when they have some thousands of employees in a single location, let's say that this location is Hyderabad. So in Hyderabad location, let's say that some 10,000 people are there. Now to have the internet connection for all these 10,000 people, they need to have servers or they need to maintain servers. Now when they maintain servers, how they maintain or where they maintain? So they have to construct a room for that. So it's not just technically a room, it's a typical building should be there. So that building is called as a server building or server rooms. Even in colleges also you'll have the server rooms and server buildings, where in these server buildings or in the server rooms, only servers will be stored. Now here the problem with this kind of technology is this comes with maintenance cost. You need to have the maintenance for this. You need to have maintenance for this. And let's say that servers has got breakdown on one particular time in a day. Okay. Now you need to have the maintenance people and you need to have the security for the server rooms and you need to have the air conditioning facility for all the server rooms, because server rooms are something where it exhibits huge amounts of heat. When they are exhibiting huge amounts of heat, obviously you need huge amounts of air conditioning system. So here what is happening? Here in the on-premises model, too much of cost is involved. In the on-premises model, too much of cost is involved. Along with the cost, it is all the company's risk who has to maintain all this data. So company has to maintain all this infrastructure. Okay, whatever the company that you are working, that company has to maintain all this infrastructure. Again, it's a burden for the company. So to avoid these kind of on-premises model, there has come a technology which is called as cloud computing. That's how cloud computing has come into picture. Now let us see the 3 different service models or cloud service models. Actually 4 are there, but let us focus mostly on 3, because the first one is basically an on-premises model. Let me show that. So the first one is called as on-premises. On-premises is nothing but everything that is required for a company, only company has to take care of all the maintenance. Company has to take care of that entire maintenance. That is called as on-premises. Suppose if the company wants to maintain the data with respect to the applications or with respect to the websites, the runtime of the servers, the middleware, the operating systems, and then the virtualization techniques, the servers, the storage capacity of all the servers, and then the networking, that is connection between one system to another system. All these things has to be maintained by the company itself. Nobody will maintain. That thing is called as on-premises model or on-premise model. So everything will be there physically. So when everything that is available physically, that is called as on-premise model. And the second one is infrastructure as a service. Okay, IaaS. So now in infrastructure as a service, what happens is only few set of data, that is with respect to the applications, data, runtime, middleware, and operating system, only this has to be managed by the company. Okay, only this has to be managed by the company. The remaining ones will be managed by the third party persons. The remaining ones, that is virtualization, servers, storage, networking, these are all maintained by the third party persons. Now, who are these third party persons? These third party persons are cloud service providers, something like AWS or Azure or the Google Cloud Platform. These are the cloud service providers. Now you can understand the factor here. So here the company is bearing only minimum amount of things. The rest of the things are maintained by the cloud service model or cloud service provider. So the best example for this you can say is a flat. So if you want to talk about infrastructure as a service, you can take flat as a best example. Suppose let's say that you want to buy a flat in an apartment. Okay. Now what you will do, you will go to the builder or you will go to the apartment owner. So basically the builder you will go to the builder and you will ask that I want to buy a flat. Right? So the client will go and ask I want to buy a flat in this particular apartment. Now what will builder provide? Builder provide very few amount of data. Suppose let's say that builder is responsible for providing of doors, windows, and then the marbles, and then few infrastructure like kind of the almaras, all these things. Okay, so these are the things which will be provided by the cloud service model. The doors, windows, the basic equipment or basic necessities that are required, the washrooms, the infrastructure in the washrooms, all these things will be provided by the builder. So this is something which is provided by the cloud service provider. Now, if you go to a builder and ask that I want the Sony TV in my house. Okay, I want Sony TV in my house. I want Samsung fridge in my house. Now builder will say that I am not responsible for that. I am responsible only for the house or only for the things that are available, or the basic needs in a house that I am going to take care of. Now if you go and ask the builder that I need this TV or this brand of equipment, now builder will say that I am not responsible for that. So now who is responsible to take care of all these things, the branded TVs or the furniture, all these things? Who will take care of it? This has to be taken care by the company. That's the difference between the infrastructure as a service with respect to the things what company has to manage and what cloud will manage. That's infrastructure as a service. And next comes the other one, which is called as platform as a service. Now in platform as a service, you have to manage only the applications and data. All the remaining things will be managed by the rest of the cloud service provider. Suppose let's say that here we are going to call the cloud service provider as AWS. So AWS will take care of the rest of the things. AWS will take care of the runtime, middleware, operating systems, virtualization, servers, storage, networking. All these things will be taken care by the cloud service provider itself. So now what happens? The company is having less amount of burden. Okay, the amount of burden is going to the cloud service provider, not to the company. Company has to take care of its applications and its data. That's it. So the remaining things, that is runtime, if servers, suppose let's say that with respect to the servers, let's say that on one particular day servers has got damaged. Now who will take care of that? Now the company will not take care because servers are being taken care by the cloud service providers. They will manage all those things. So here the company's burden is getting reduced. So the best example you can take is, in this case, is the studio apartments. Let's say the studio apartments are a kind of gated community or fully furnished house, you can say. So studio apartment. Now what happens with respect to the studio apartments? Now when you buy a studio apartment, they don't just provide the basic amenities. That means they don't provide the doors, windows, the marbles, or the empty house. Along with the basic amenities, they will also provide the infrastructure. Okay, they'll also provide the infrastructure. Now, when I say infrastructure, they'll provide TV, they'll provide the fridge, okay, they'll provide all the like sofa, the dining table, all this infrastructure they will provide. Okay. Now, let us say that all the electronic goods they are getting from the same company called Samsung. They are getting from the same company, and they provided the TV, fridge, washing machine, all these things which are belonging to the same company. Let us say that same company as Samsung. Now, again, you cannot, the apartment, I mean, whoever is willing to buy the apartment, he cannot go to the builder and he cannot ask that I don't want Samsung TV, I want Sony TV. I don't want 32 inches TV, I want 52 inches TV. Now what will builder say? That is not my duty. My duty is to provide the basic amenities that are required for you along with the infrastructure. Now whatever infrastructure I am going to provide to you, you have to use only that. Now, if you want additional infrastructure, let's say that I don't want Samsung TV, I want Sony TV. Now, in that case, what has to happen? The company has to buy this one. Okay, cloud service provider will provide you some basic infrastructure. If you want to advance the features, okay, if you want to advance the modern equipment, or if you want to go with the modern facilities, then company has to buy this. So that is what platform as a service. So in platform as a service, the applications and the data has to be maintained by the company. Okay, whoever the company that is there, that company has to maintain. But with respect to the remaining factors, that is runtime, middleware, all these things, the AWS provider will manage all these things. That is what platform as a service. And the next case is software as a service or packaged software as a service. Now in packaged software as a service or as a software as a service, everything will be taken care by the cloud service provider. That is basically AWS. So all the things that are related to applications, data, everything, whatever things that you are seeing in the orange color, everything will be maintained by the cloud service provider. Now you might have a question here. So if everything is maintained by the cloud service provider, then what is the job of software people or software engineers? They have their own jobs. It is not that since everything is maintained by the cloud service provider, that doesn't mean the software engineer doesn't have a job. Now let's say that let's say they are working, this company is working with applications. Now what cloud service provider will do? They will provide the basic requirements that are required for an application, to launch an application. Let's say that you want to launch an app. You want to launch an app. Now you have to decide the name, you have to decide the storage capacity. Let's say that you want some 10 servers for this app. 10 servers for this app. And let's say that you want 1 TB storage capacity for this app. Now who has to take care, who has to define all these things? Company has to define. Now once the company defines all these things, then the company will approach the cloud service provider. Now what is the role of cloud service provider? Based upon the requirement of the company, the cloud service provider will provide the details as per the requirements. That's the simple difference between infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and on-premises. Okay, so here, what exactly the AWS is? AWS is actually a combination of all these three. AWS does not provide only infrastructure. AWS will not provide only platform as a service. AWS does not provide only software as a service. AWS is actually a combination of all these three, and that's the reason why AWS is gaining prominence. It is not just providing only PaaS. It is not just providing only SaaS. It is not just providing IaaS. It is providing a combination of all these things. So if you want only PaaS, you can buy only PaaS. If you want only SaaS, you can work with only SaaS. If you want combination of things, that also will be provided by AWS. So this is what the cloud service models that are available. Now let us come to the next case, which is called as cloud deployment models. So basically in cloud deployment models, we have three types. The first one is called as public cloud, second one is called as private cloud, and the next one is called as hybrid cloud. Nowadays, the community cloud is also coming into picture. So let us see what is this public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and community cloud. Public cloud is something which, suppose let's say there is a company called, again, IBM. Let's take the IBM as the company. Now, public cloud is something where in IBM, let's say that 1,000 employees are available. For all these 1,000 employees, okay, they will provide the cloud computing platform. That means it's actually a thing which is between an organization. So people who are working in that organization, for all those people, the cloud model will be provided, and that model is called as public cloud model. Now let's say that you are working in an Infosys company. Now Infosys, if you are working in an Infosys company and if you go and ask that I need IBM cloud or the cloud which is being used by IBM, they will not give the cloud service acceptance to the Infosys people because that is limited to one organization. So when the cloud service or when deployment model is limited to a particular organization, for all the people working in that organization, if they provide the cloud model, that is called as a public cloud. Suppose let's say that you are working in a company or you are working in some private college or some private organization. So if you are working in a private organization, they'll give you the emails, like private emails. Suppose let's say that you are working in an Infosys. Okay, so they'll give you the private emails for Infosys. Suppose let's say that some name. Okay, let's say that Kiran@infosys.in. This is the email. Now, if you are working in IBM and if you ask for Infosys person to provide the Infosys email ID, they don't provide because they don't want to provide. And the internet data, I mean, the data is also shared among all these emails. Now, they don't want the IBM person to come and sit in the Infosys company. So that's called as public cloud. So public cloud is something which is limited to the group of people who are working in an organization. And then comes the private cloud. Private cloud is something which is limited to an individual people. Let's say that you are working on AWS. I am also working on AWS. Now we both are not belonging to the same company. So that case of cloud model is called as private cloud model. Okay, that case of model is called as private cloud model. And then comes the hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is actually a mix of the private cloud and public cloud. Okay? Hybrid cloud is actually a mix of private cloud and public cloud. So they can give access to individual people, and they can also give access to the people who are working in the same organization. The best example for this is AWS. So AWS can give the access to individual persons. AWS can give access to the group of companies also. That's called hybrid cloud. And then comes the community cloud. Community cloud is nothing but it is more like a public cloud only. But in community cloud, what happens is all the things or all the cloud service model, whatever that is there, they'll be shared to only particular community. Now, what do I mean by community? Let's say that there is a company, okay, some X company is there. Now, in this X company, there are different categories of employees. Suppose let's say that general managers is the first case, and then the team leaders, and then the team members. Okay. This group of general managers or group of team leaders or group of team members, they are called as communities. So suppose let's say that general and at the level of general manager, they need most important information. They don't want to access all the data that is being done by each and every individual person working in the company. They need only the most important information. So only for all the general managers who are working in the company, they will provide a separate community cloud. And only for the team leaders, they have to get the data from the team members. So since they have to store the data collect the data and store the data from team members, they might be given with a separate cloud. And similarly for team members also, that is called as community cloud. Community cloud is nothing but in the same company, based on the roles or based on the level of job that they are doing, they'll give separate cloud deployment model. And that cloud deployment model is called as community cloud deployment model. So these are the two different cloud models. One is called service model and the second one is called as deployment model. Now let's compare the on-premises versus cloud. So we know that cloud is having more advantages than the on-premises, but let us see what are those advantages. The first advantage is in cloud computing, the hardware cost is very low because everything will be managed by the cloud service provider. But whereas in the on-premises, the company has to manage all the things. Okay, the company has to manage the hardware, the physical servers, all these things. And the backup and recovery cost is very less in the cloud computing. Whereas the backup and recovery cost is very high. Suppose let's say that a server got breakdown in the company. Let's say some 10 servers has got breakdown. Now what you have to do if you are working in a company or if you are looking with on-premise hosting, No, they have to call. The people has to call the maintenance person and they have to pay some amount to the maintenance person and maintenance persons will repair. So that's where high maintenance cost is involved when there is a breakdown of servers or when there is a breakdown of internet. But whereas here in the cloud computing, everything will be taken care by the cloud provider only. These are few advantages. Apart from these few, you also have few others, which is with respect to the cost, security, customization, and implementation. So obviously, whatever you compare, the cloud will stand top. Okay, cloud is something which stands top. That's the reason why the companies are also shifting to the cloud instead of on-premises. Okay, nowadays most of the companies are shifting towards clouds because the cloud service provider is responsible for the maintenance of everything or most of the things. Company has to maintain the bare minimum things. So that's where the companies are getting some relaxation. So that's why the companies are moving towards the cloud computing models. Now let us see this one, which is our topic, which is called as AWS. So here in AWS, generally called as Amazon Web Services or generally expanded to Amazon Web Services, which is technically offered by the Amazon. So whatever the Amazon website or Amazon, the model which we are seeing or the Amazon.in, the shopping website which we are seeing, that is the same company. That is Jeff Bezos is the one who is providing this Amazon Web Services also. Okay, so from the same company you can see. Now, basically, it is a platform which offers the flexible, reliable, scalable, easy to use and cost-effective cloud computing. So flexible is nothing but suppose let's say that in order to launch a website, you need 10 servers. Let's say that in order to launch a website, you need 10 servers. Let us understand this. And you also need 10 GB of data, or let's say not 10 GB, let's say that 10 TB of data is required. 10 TB of storage capacity is required. Now, let's say that on you bought for 10 servers and you also bought the storage capacity at 10 TB. Now, flexible is nothing but AWS has come up with a new feature that whatever the number of servers that you are using, suppose let's say that for the next 1 month, they have used only 5 servers. Okay, let's say that they have used only 5 servers. Now, AWS has the facility or the flexibility that you have to provide only for 5 servers because you have utilized only 5 servers. The remaining 5 servers you have not utilized. So that is called as pay as you use. Okay, you are going to pay only for what you use. You are going to pay only for what you use. That is called as pay as you use mode. So we'll talk much about the reliable, scalable, easy to use once when we talk about each and every service from the next class only. So this is one thing with respect to the advantage of AWS. And then comes AWS basically provides the services to the individuals. Okay. It also provides its services to the companies and it also provides services to the government organizations as well. But here what you have to remember is it is all based on the paid subscription process. Okay, you have to pay the amount. That is why you said pay as you go. So whatever you pay, whatever you use, you pay only for that. You don't need to pay for extra things whatever you are not using. So because of this advantage also, AWS is gaining the prominence. And then comes, as I said earlier, AWS is a platform which is developed with a combination of IaaS, SaaS, and PaaS. So that's also one of the reasons. So this is in simple terms about Amazon Web Services. Now the question is why Amazon Web Services? What is the reason why people are using Amazon Web Services? The reason is very simple. It has the most flexible properties, that is, it is very easy to use. It is basically a secured platform, and then it is a reliable factor. Has better accessibility, and you can also scale it at a greater rate. And the speed is also, that is, functioning capacity is also very good, and it has no capacity limits. So I was talking about 1 GB, 1 TB in the first, in the initial beginning of the time, beginning of the class, that is Google Drive pen drive. So it has no capacity limits. So because of all these reasons, AWS is being used, and the people are shifting towards the cloud computing, not just the AWS, the other cloud services also, but mostly to the AWS. So that's the reason why AWS is gaining prominence. Okay. So now let us talk about the history of AWS, when AWS has actually started and how it is there now and how it was there. It was there in the long time. So basically AWS has started in the year 2006. So technically AWS is launched in the year 2006. But before it actually launched, in the 2003 itself, they have prepared the documentation work that is required for the AWS. So whatever the documentation that is required, all the documentation has prepared in the 2003 itself. And after preparing the document, the very first service which was launched is SQS, which is called as Simple Queue Service. This is the first service which is launched by AWS, Simple Queue Service. Okay. And as soon as after AWS launched in the year 2006, there S3 is the first service, that is simple storage service. I'll talk about that in the next classes. Don't worry about that. But this is how the AWS has got evolved over a period of time. So from 2003 to 2013 and then 2018 and then till today, it has got huge amount of popularity and huge amounts of services are being provided. Okay, so when somebody asks, even if you are writing any kind of certification exams, make sure that if anybody asks or if you get a question like when was AWS launched, you have to tell 2006 only, not 2003 or 2004. But if they ask you what was the first service that is launched, you have to tell SQS is the first service which is launched. Okay, SQS, Simple Queue Service is the first one which is launched. And then by the end of 2019, AWS used to provide almost 100 cloud services. But as of now, as of 2022 till date, it actually offers more than 250 services in the AWS. Okay, by the end of 2021, it was 200. But as of now, I mean, if you take as of till date, it is offering almost 250 plus services in the cloud. That means you can also see the range of services that are being provided by AWS. So huge amount of services like the EC2, this S3, simple notification service, simple queue service, many services are being provided by the AWS, and that's where it is gaining popularity. So this is in simple terms about the history of AWS. Now let us understand the companies that are using AWS. So there are different companies like Netflix, Instagram, and then the Facebook, Pinterest, and then LinkedIn, Dropbox, SmugMug. These are few companies where AWS is, where they are using the services of AWS. All these companies are working with AWS only. So, right? If they want to store any kind of data with respect to the Netflix, like in Netflix, you will see huge amount of data, that is huge amount of movies will be there. Now where they are storing all these movies, they have to store somewhere. So they are using AWS for that. So likewise, these are the different companies who are using AWS as the services. And then the question comes is why these companies are using AWS and for what reason? Is it just because AWS can store huge amount of data? No, it is not. It is also one of the reasons, but it is not just one reason. Let us understand that. Suppose let's say that a user is there. Let's say you are there and you want to launch an app or launch a website. Let's say that I am an user and I want to launch an app called Civil Legal. Now, whenever I want to launch an app or whenever I want to launch a web page or the website, what I have to do, I have to have the servers. Okay, I need to have a server room and then I need to take care of the maintenance. So here I'm just talking with respect to a small app, but let us assume it as a company wise. Okay, so now if any company wants to launch an app or wants to launch a website, they need to have servers. Now the function of servers is it will distribute the load or it will distribute the traffic to the user. Now let's say that you bought servers where they can take 1,000 requests. Suppose let's say that 1,000 requests per second. 1,000 requests per second. Now here, let's say that I am assuming that not more than 1,000 requests will come to my website or will come to my web app application per second. Now, let us assume that on one day, okay, your website or your app has got much popularity and people started using it at a daily basis. Okay, so suppose if we take the example of 2012, 2013, WhatsApp was the very least possible, very least used one. Now, if you look at it, almost everybody is having the WhatsApp account, and people are having multiple WhatsApp accounts also. The same person is having 2, 3 accounts also, right? 2, 3 multiple WhatsApp accounts. Now, what is happening in this case? Now, when the traffic is getting increased to the website or when the user requests are getting increased to the app or website, now what happens is the traffic is getting increased. And you bought the servers, which can handle only 1,000 requests per second. okay, which can handle only 1,000 requests. Suppose if 1,000 people, if on a single second, if 1,000 people types civiledu.com, it can handle. But let's say that the traffic has increased to some 15,000 requests, it has increased. Now the servers you bought for can handle only 1,000 requests. Now you are getting huge amounts of requests because of its popularity or because of its content which is provided. Now how will you manage? Now in this case, what happens is, since you bought servers to handle only 1,000 requests, the breakdown of servers will happen. The servers will break down because it doesn't have huge amounts of capacity or huge amount of load bearing capacity. The best example for this case is, suppose when you get the results, okay, like whatever the university which you are studying. So if you, on the day of results, if you click on some xyz.com, let's say that there is a university called xyz.com. This is the website. This is the website of that particular university. Now, when the results are coming, obviously people will run to look into the results. Now, it is not just 1,000 requests now. Now, all the students who are there under that university, they will try to open that website every second. They'll keep on reloading. You will have an experience. I mean, you might have faced that. Now, when the requests are getting more, what happens is the website will not function. The maintenance of the website or the downtime of the website will happen. When a website is running at a lower pace, you don't get the result. You need to wait for till midnight, or you need to keep on reloading. Now, at that case, what happened is they must have designed the website to bear some minimum amount of requests. Now, on the day of exam, you don't find minimum requests. You will find the maximum requests that are coming to the website, or the maximum traffic that is coming to the website. Now, in that case, what happens is the servers will get breakdown. Now, when the servers are getting breakdown, obviously you need people who can repair the servers, or you need a maintenance team for the servers. Now, servers got broke down, and you called the maintenance people. Now, when you call the maintenance people, obviously they'll charge some amount. Okay, they'll take some amount to repair the servers. Now, when they are charging some amount, obviously you need to pay certain amount for the maintenance team. Okay, whoever is looking after that, the maintenance team, you have to pay the amount. Now, in this case, AWS has come into picture, or the cloud model has come into picture. Now, why cloud model has come into picture? The cloud model said that, or the AWS said that, you don't need to bother about the services. You don't need to bother about the traffic to the website. You don't need to bother about the servers, or whether they are getting error, or whether they are getting failed or not. You don't need to bother about the maintenance. Only thing which you have to bother about is the cost. Rest everything we will take care. That's what the cloud service providers are telling. So what cloud service providers are telling is, you can rent the servers based upon the requirement. A limited amount of time. Now let's say that you got the results. So suppose let's say that in the late night you got the result at 10 p.m. Okay, in the 10 in the evening you got the result. So maximum to maximum, people can access their result by the next day 10 a.m. By the next morning 10 a.m. they can see the results. Now for this time, that is, suppose let's say that 12 hours of time. For this 12 hours of time, they can rent the servers. Okay, from whom they can rent? They can rent the servers from cloud service models. Now, once they can rent the models, they don't need to maintain all those things, because they are just getting it for rent. Everything will be maintained by the cloud service providers only. And that's where the cloud computing is coming into picture. So the maintenance, everything, they'll be taken care by the cloud service model. In this case, it is AWS. Only thing is, you have to pay for whatever you are using. Suppose let's say that you are buying 2 servers. You pay for only 2 servers. Suppose let's say that initial days you bought some 10 servers. Okay. Suppose on the off days, suppose let's say that you don't have the exams and you don't have the results and all. Now, how many people will hardly access the university website? A maximum to maximum 100 to 200 people will access. And this also gets varied. So for 100 to 200 people, if you are buying some 10 servers, you are wasting the amount here. I mean, whoever is buying, they are wasting the amount. Now, in that case, depending on your requirement, you buy the servers from the cloud service model. That's an advantage. You don't need to look care of the maintenance. You don't need to take care of the server errors or server downtimes. All these things you don't need to bother about. The AWS will bother about that. The AWS is meant for that. You don't need to bother about anything. You just bother about your website. Okay, you just bother about putting the data in your website. Rest everything will take care. And you pay for whatever you are using. That's it. That's the reason why companies are using AWS. So because of this reason only, companies are getting into the AWS model or the cloud model. So now this is all about the introduction towards the cloud computing. But before I end the session, let me take some 15 more minutes of time and then I'll talk about the certifications, okay? AWS certifications. Now, AWS will provide some certification courses. So obviously they are available at some better amount of prices, like they ranges from 7,000 to 8,000 and somewhere they go up to 15,000 and 20,000 also. Anyways, I'll talk about that price in some time. So what does AWS provide is AWS will provide some certification courses in different sectors. Now, why the AWS is providing the certification courses? It helps because it helps the professionals to build the credibility and confidence. Suppose let's say that you are learning AWS from Civil or from me. You should know whether the things, whatever you have learned are really the helpful factors or not. So in that case, if you want to test yourself, if you want to expertise, if you want to see your expertise, you can write this AWS certification. Remember, AWS certification is purely provided by AWS. No other third party is involved here. So if anybody comes to you and say that I will get you the AWS certification, don't believe. Okay. Nowadays it is happening in the market, in the IT market, it is happening. Okay. So don't believe any third persons. You have to go to the AWS website or AWS console. You have to register for the exam and you have to write that exam. Only then it is called as an AWS certified exam. Okay, if somebody is telling that I'll give you the certificate, you pay only 4,000, you pay only 2,000, then it is not an AWS certified certificate. So why it is providing? It is because to enhance the skills, okay, to check the skills whatever you have. And then the benefits of certification goes in these ways, like as I said, to demonstrate your own technical skills or technical expertise. And then it also helps employers to find skilled cloud professionals, which is most important. So again, you might have a doubt that do we really need AWS certification courses or do we really need AWS certificates? If you are a fresher, I would say yes, it is required. Okay. Again, it is not a mandatory thing. If you are a fresher and if you want to if you want to see your career in AWS or the cloud model, it's better if you have the certificate, because since you are getting you don't have any experience. If you have this AWS certification or certificate, it provides a better appearance to the recruiters or the employers. Okay, it helps employers to find such people. Suppose let's say that you have cracked one AWS certification exam. So that means what actually it means? You are skilled in that. At least you are good at it when you compare with the rest of the people. So it is just a certification. I mean, like it is just a proof that you know at least a few things in the cloud, that is AWS cloud. So because of these things, it will help you to get the certification courses. Now let us see the different types of certifications that is provided by AWS. So based on the role or based on the level of learning in the AWS cloud, so there are 9 different certifications that are available. The first one is called as Cloud Practitioner, which is a beginner level. So if I suggest to go for any certification exam, I would suggest for this one, AWS Cloud Practitioner. And then if you are good at it, then you can go for the remaining certifications: Certified Cloud Developer, SysOps Administrator, Solutions Architect. Solutions Architect, again, you have associate level and professional level. And then the DevOps Engineer, Big Data, Advanced Networking, and Security. DevOps is also one of the most important things. So nowadays, like whoever is learning AWS, they are also parallelly learning DevOps. DevOps is also one skill. But you should not directly go and learn DevOps. Okay, first learn AWS, then only you migrate to DevOps, because whatever the things that you do in the DevOps, they are all interlinked with the AWS. Okay, without AWS, you cannot work with DevOps. You cannot work in DevOps. So you will find somewhere or other, you will find link with the AWS when you are working with DevOps. So it is most important to learn the AWS as a beginner. And then you can work with the DevOps courses as well. Again, in DevOps, you have the Jenkins, Mavins, Kubernetes. You have number of platforms or number of tools, so where you have to learn. Anyways, that's not our topic. So these are the different AWS certifications that are available. And then let me talk about these are the foundational level, which is Cloud Practitioner, which is a basic level certification exam. And the duration of this exam is 90 minutes. And the associate level exam, the duration is of 130 minutes and 130 minutes and 180 minutes. So you can see this one. If you want, I'll share this particular image so that you can have a look. Even if you go to the Google and if you just type AWS certification exams, you'll find this one. Okay. And then these are the different details. Remember, all the AWS certification exams are in the format of multiple choice questions only. Okay, they are all in the format of multiple choice questions only. And the exam will be online. Okay, you don't need to go anywhere and you don't need to write the exam. So it is completely an online exam. So the basic price for the certification course is $100, which comes almost 7,500 to 8,000 rupees as far as the present dollar rate is concerned. And then it goes up to $300. So you can see the next with $150 and then 150 and then $300 you can see. Okay, so 300 is the maximum amount. Okay? That's the maximum price which you can pay to get an AWS. But as a beginner, it would be better if you go with cloud practitioner, which is for $100, and you need to have the basic requirements. So whatever the topics that we are covering in this particular training, those topics are sufficient to crack the beginner level exam. Okay, that is these are the basic things. Okay? Apart from this, you need other aspects also, because as I was telling you, have almost 250 plus services. Now, if I ask, do we need to learn all these 250 plus services? No. Nobody knows all the 250 plus services. They know barely 10 to 15 services or 20 services on a maximum level. So mostly people work with this 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 services only. Okay. Among all these 15 to 20 services, I have picked up the most important ones for the freshers. So if you are already working, suppose I have one more batch in which there are software employees are already working. So in that case, what I'll do is I go with some additional topics also. I'll teach some 15 to 18 topics. Services I'll be teaching. It depends on the requirement. So suppose here in your case, I'll not be covering the concept called RDS, which is relational database systems. And then I won't be covering a topic called DynamoDB. So at a basic level, these are not required. These are not required. But it's better if you can learn. But at a beginner level, it's not okay to learn all these things. I mean, the RDS, DynamoDB, but still, it's not a thing like a man. You should know. You should not know. You should know. Any service is something which is a very important one. Not just RDS and DynamoDB. You can learn any services. But what we are going to cover in our case is the 10 services which we are going to provide. So this is something based on the jobs. So once you complete the AWS training, you are probably having the multiple options of jobs. So you'll have the cloud practitioner, and then you can become a solution architect. You can become a developer, SysOps admin. These are the different roles, different jobs which are available based on the cloud or based on the AWS. So as a beginner level, you can go with this one. I mean, you will be given with this one only, cloud practitioner. Okay, where you will be requiring 6 months of a fundamental AWS cloud and industry knowledge. Industry knowledge is something which we will provide. So that's what I said, like we'll be discussing the real-time scenarios, we'll be giving you the assignments of real-time scenarios, and then the topics that are related to the interview questions, all these things will provide. That helps you to get the industry knowledge, how actually the industry is working with respect to AWS. So these are the different roles which are based on AWS. And then comes the different AWS services. So these are the few different AWS services. Okay, you can see all these set of services. Along with these, you also have few other services also. Right? DevOps, mobile applications, and then infrastructure, analytics, database, security, and then you have the services related to the deployment and management, application services, foundation services. So these are the different services. Now here, as I said earlier, we are going to look into in compute services, we are going to look into Amazon EC2. And then in storage services, we'll be looking into Glacier, Amazon Glacier. And then S3 is also one of the storage service. It is not mentioned here. So S3 we'll be talking about. And then in the networking, we'll be talking about the Amazon VPC and Route 53. And then we'll also be working with the CloudWatch as well. And then in the administration and security, we'll be working with AWS IAM, which is Identity and Access Management. Hopefully, we'll be working with SQS and SES also. So simple queue service and simple email service, this also will be covered. And then with respect to the mobile services, we'll be working with the simple notification service as well. Along with these things, so suppose here, the EC2, and then ECS, okay, and then the elastic load balancing concept, Amazon S3, Amazon Glacier, Amazon CloudFront. CloudFront we'll be seeing at a basic level, VPC, Route 53, Okay, and then IAM. So these are the few things which are available as of now. So we'll be covering. So here you can see SNS, which is simple notification service. So these things will be covered over a period of the next 30 to 35 days of time. So in uh, each and every service, suppose tomorrow I don't start with the services. Tomorrow I'll let you know how to create the Amazon Web Services account and then how to look after the different features that are available in the Amazon website. Just an overview I'll be giving along with the creation of AWS account. From day after tomorrow onwards, we'll be starting the first service, which is with S3, which is called a simple storage service. That's the first service which we are going to do. And each service will take 10 to 15 days or hardly 10 to 12 days of time. Minimum 2 weeks is required to complete each and every service, because that's the amount of topics that are there in each and every service. Some topics are very small. Suppose if you take SNS can be finished hardly in 1 day. It requires hardly one hour of time. Even SES and SQS also requires hardly 1 to 1.5 hour of time. So based upon the requirement, we'll be going with, but mostly the services will be covered with 10 to 15 days of time. But what I suggest is you don't try to miss any of the classes, because yes, we are going to provide the recorded videos, but that doesn't mean you can skip the classes. Okay, when you don't have the flexibility to attend the classes, that's fine. But just because we are providing the videos, recorded videos, doesn't mean that you can skip the classes, because when you are there in the class, what happens is you can ask the doubts. But when you are working with the video factor, or when you are looking into the video, if you get the doubts, yes, you are free to contact me. You are okay. I mean, you are allowed to contact me. But probably I might not be able to tell at that particular point of time. Maybe I'll be busy with my own works. So there is a chance in that way. So what I suggest is you better, attend all the classes or as many. Providing the recorded videos, you can come up with the recorded video also. And whenever you have a doubt, you can always message me in the WhatsApp, or you can message me in the group itself, so that anybody can answer. So that everybody, the remaining people can also know what kind of questions others are asking, in what way they are looking into AWS. So we'll get the perspective differences also, which is a good thing. So learning process is a good thing. So this is all about for today's class. In the next class, we'll be talking about the creation of AWS account and then the looking after the AWS console. So that's where I end my class.